Hey, what's up everybody, How To Tech, and we're going to do a quick reassembly on this Galaxy S7 Edge. First, starting with our 3.5mm headphone jack. We're going to go ahead and insert, you just have to kind of snap it down in place. You'll kind of feel it pop back in. We can go ahead and put our screw that holds the headphone jack back in place. And then we'll need to go ahead and push the cable down onto the charge port board. Make sure it snaps in. You'll feel it kind of pop back in place, kind of like a button. With that done, we can go ahead and put our vibration module back in. If you've removed that, it does kind of fit back into a cutout just right below. You may have to use a pair of tweezers or a nylon switch to kind of line it up. Should still have the right amount of adhesive on the back of it to put it back in place. Next, we're going to go ahead and put in the volume buttons if this was removed. You can see there's a little cutout. This will be facing downwards towards the frame of the phone. And just kind of push it back against the buttons. Once you got it kind of lined up and in place, then you can go ahead and put the actual volume button in on top with the ribbon cable facing towards the top of the device. Perfect. Once it's in nice and snug, test the buttons, make sure they function properly. We just do the same thing for the power button as well. Put the button back in place. May be a little bit tricky to get in if you've bent it at all when removing it. We'll go ahead and put the proximity sensor module back in place. You can see there's a cutout for it. It goes up nice and snug against the top of the board. You want to make sure you get it in there exactly right. It'll fit right within the cutout. You can push against the adhesive and put it back down in its spot as well. Just use your back of your spudger to kind of push it back in spot. After that, we'll go ahead and put the headphone jack in, make sure the adhesive is still there and flattened out. You don't want any vibration issues with your earpiece speaker. Making sure the adhesive is nice and flat will help that not happen. Make sure it sits flat into the earpiece speaker as well, and then give it a little bit of pressure. Go ahead and put the antenna cables back in, starting with the red one first. We'll go ahead and snap this one back in place. It's going to be a little bit tricky. You want to make sure they're exactly lined up. You don't want to bend these, and they can be damaged fairly easy, so just be gentle with them as you're putting them back in. With that one done, we'll go ahead and move on to the other one, the gray one. This goes closer towards the headphone jack connection. Snap it down as well. We can go ahead and put it into the guide slot here also. So the gray cable goes underneath the red cable. Let's go ahead and line all this up. Put it back in the guide slot here also. Now the next step would be to put these cables back in their guide area on the frame of the phone. So we go to put the logic board back in. They're underneath the little flange on the board itself. Pushing the gray cable in first, and then we can put the red cable back on top of it. Now be careful not to use a ton of pressure. We don't want to damage these at all. Push our spudger through them. So just give a little bit of pressure just so they're in there nice and snug. Then we can take our logic board, snap it back in place. Then we're going to go ahead and lay it flat. We need to make sure all of the cables are removed from underneath the board itself. So like these antenna wires here will need to be moved out from underneath. The display, power, volume, the proximity sensor, earpiece speaker, all those cables, the home button, we'll need to make sure it's out from underneath the board. So once you have it all lined up, all those cables are removed out from underneath the board. Then you can go ahead and start snapping them back in place. This will help keep the board nice and snug as you put in the additional portions. So starting with the home button, just work your way around and snap everything back in place. The antenna, display, power, earpiece, proximity sensor, volume up and down. You can also put the front-facing camera in as well, but we'll do that here in just a few seconds. All right, now with everything snapped back in, we'll also put the battery back in as well. It should still have a little bit of adhesive to hold it down in place. Make sure you flattened it back out so it's nice and flat and not bulging anywhere upwards where we pried it out of the phone itself. Go ahead and put the front-facing camera back in here real quick as well. All right. We're looking good. It looks like we have all the components installed. The next step would be to put the plastic framework or the housing back in place. Go ahead and snap that back in. Go ahead and put all of the screws back in it also. We'll go ahead and put the middle portion in. It kind of snaps in down towards the bottom, and then snap it back in place and put its remaining screws in. We can put the top flap in, starting at the top and then pushing down towards the camera. That'll snap back in place. We'll go ahead and insert the screws in that also. Now with all this all done, I would go ahead and test the device at that point, and then move on to putting the double-sided adhesive on the back of the phone. So I'm just using some VHB tape, which I'll throw up down in the description below. And you can use double-sided 3M tape as well. We're just going to use some straight strips across the straighter portions of the sides, top, and bottom of the phone. And we'll try to put adhesive everywhere there was adhesive before. So that would also mean right above the bottom, underneath the battery, we'll have a strip just right here. We'll put a straight strip across. Make sure that it's nice and flat, there's no ripples, and we're not overlapping tape. Then we can take little strips and just push them out. Now you could cut these to fit right into the corner if you wanted to. I find this a little bit less time consuming and pretty easy. So here's how it looks like it's all taped up. My back is nice and snug. Go ahead and start removing the adhesive backing off of all of the strips of tape and get prepared to put the back on. Now with all that removed, we've cleaned up all the remaining residue off the back of the phone. We'll go ahead and start with inserting the top corners first, making sure those are nice and snug up in the corners. Start at the bottom, press both corners in, and then you can work your way around the sides of the phone. Being a little bit gentle, we don't want to put a ton of pressure on this. If it doesn't want to fit in, it probably isn't lined up. You have to pull back off, possibly put new adhesive on. Now once you have that done, you have reassembled your phone and all is well. I hope you found the video helpful. If you have any questions, throw up in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. As always, like, share, put it out there. Thanks for watching. Peace.